Alright, you're welcome to this video. Now in this video we are going to look at a simple project, and this project we shall build it in Python, PySide 6, C++, JavaScript and VBA. Now JavaScript we shall go ahead to integrate CSS and HTML. In VBA we shall integrate Microsoft Excel. I'm still your instructor, Emmanuel Ogdudu, for this course. Now we have the task which we are going to work on. The task is simple, where a trader deals with a sale of 3 items, and they have given us the cost price, the selling price, and the quantity that trader sells. So they want us to create a program which will calculate the trader's profit and the percentage profit. Now, as simple as it is, we are going to transform it into a mega project. Now, by the end of this session, we shall be guided by the following learning outcomes. Should be able to explain fundamental business concepts such as the cost price, selling price, profit, and the percentage profit. Should also be able to apply mathematical formulas to compute the profit and the percentage profit, and other calculations we shall see. Should also be able to design appropriate data structures to represent real-world entities. Should also be able to implement solutions using multiple programming languages and environments. Should also be able to analyze program output to make informed decisions. One of the outputs we shall create will be a CSV file. Should also be able to evaluate program robustness through validation and error handling. Should also be able to create extensible and reusable software. Now, in the previous case, we have seen 3 products. Can you extend this product to handle more than only 3? Can you extend this application to handle more than 3 products? Now, we have keynotes to take here. Like I said, we shall use Python, JavaScript, VBA to accomplish this task. Alongside, we shall build a graphical user interface application. So, I'm very confident that if you build this in C++, it will not be hard for you to do the same in C language. And the same thing, if you can do it in JavaScript, actually there's some relation in the syntax with C# and Java. So actually you can also build this using Visual Basic, because if we learn how to use Visual Basic for applications, which comes in Microsoft Excel, I'm pretty sure you can build this in Visual Basic. Now you can run to AI to give you the solutions, but in this course I'm going to give a detailed explanation. Before we start a concept, I will entirely explain the concept before we apply it. Now, what are some of the requirements for you to kickstart this course? You should have at least Visual Studio Code installed on your PC, whether it is Windows, Linux or Mac. So you should also have Python. Alternatively, we shall see how to use Google Colab. So you should also have, for a graphical user interface application, you should have PySide 6 installed. So you should also have Dev C++. In case you don't have Visual Studio Code, Dev C++ helps us to run C++ and C programming languages. You should also have Microsoft Excel installed, at least version 2010 and above. You should also have a text editor. So we have a variety: Notepad, Sublime Text, and many others, but I will recommend Visual Studio Code because it is a rich text editor. Like I had mentioned earlier, the JavaScript will go ahead, we shall involve HTML and CSS for styling. So when we proceed with the requirements, you also need a Windows PC, actually a Windows 10 PC or 11. And then you should also, in case you're using Ubuntu, it is okay. In case you're using Mac, it is okay. So you only need to have all the software installed. So the last section, we shall see how to use AI to solve that very problem. So a keynote is there's no experience required. Now about me, I'm a teacher by profession, and on the screen there is a variety of skills which I'm capable of to do, from basic networking, basic cybersecurity, programming languages, C++, C, JavaScript, Python, basics in data science, machine learning, office applications, scripting, HTML, CSS, structured query language, mention it. So in case you are in need of a serious, competent, and skill-driven, don't hesitate to hook up on me. My contacts were there on the screen. Now, my teaching philosophy. My approach is around Bloom's taxonomy, whereby I embark on project-based approach to learning. Now, this helps learners to gain real-world application and create build real-world knowledge on how things run in the real world. Now, I design learning activities that progressively develop cognitive skills, starting with foundational knowledge, advancing through analysis and evaluation. So, in the courses, in the projects we are going to develop, if it is C++, we start by explaining the concepts, then go ahead to apply the concepts. And then we finally apply the solutions we have got across multiple programming languages. Now, my instructional strategy still. Each topic is introduced through a real-life problem. To establish relevancy and motivation, learners first demonstrate understanding of the core concepts such as the profit. So, I first explain the profit, what about the cost price, what about the percentage profit, etc. before we go ahead to apply it. So, as we conclude this, I also make sure there's engagement through questions and answers. So to accommodate diverse learning styles, the same problem is implemented across console-based applications, then graphical user interface applications. Like I said, we shall use PySide 6. So frequent pauses of reflection on questions and different scenarios will be done throughout this course. Then lastly, industry and academic relevancy. So this project emphasizes transferable computational thinking skills. So by the end, we shall be able to think like developers in the field. So the inclusion of validation, error handling, and user interaction mirrors real-world professional practice. So that is exactly what we are going to do. We are going to make sure our application is able to handle errors and everything which will show up. So in every software development process, there are stages which are followed, or phases. Now the first phase is the requirements gathering. Now under this phase, we document what the system should do. An example, to calculate the profit. So we start building on from there and the percentage profit to start planning. So in the planning stage, we define the scope, the timeline, we define the resources and the risks involved. So we define the resources like, I will use Python, I will use Visual Studio Code, I will need maybe to hire somebody to support, I maybe need to buy the design. So that's where I will plan. I will plan on how long I will take on the project, that's the timeline. So I will also plan the design. Here you can simply create system architecture, data models, and UI interface. So the interface is what you interact with, what the users interact with. So you can simply design this interface on paper before you go ahead to implement it in the code. Development, write and integrate the actual code. Now this code you can simply also write it on paper before you implement it. So we go to the testing stage. After you've written everything, like we shall see, always test to verify the functionality, whether it really meets the user requirements, because at first you gather the user requirements. Then deployment, release the software to users or production. So in case you created an executable file or a website, release it for use. Maintenance, update, optimize, and support the system. So after developing a system or a website, follow up and always do maintenance. So that is how you keep yourself engaged and employed. So this brings us to the end. So by the end, you should be able to think like a software developer. Software development follows clear life cycle from understanding the problem to maintaining the solution. So the problem is capture the profit and many other problems you will encounter in the field. So you must identify the problem, understand it, and you have to keep the solution on track. So if you're excited to learn with me, so get ready and let's get started. So to install JavaScript on Windows, Linux or Mac, first of all, we are going to use Visual Studio Code because it is a versatile code editor. Now, first of all, install Visual Studio Code. And to install Visual Studio Code, you can refer to the previous videos on how to install Visual Studio Code in any of those platforms. And then go ahead to launch Visual Studio Code. And then go to the extensions marketplace. There are 4 cubes here. Then search for install these extensions here. Start with the first one, HTML CSS support. It is this extension. I think install this. It has about 27 plus million installations, active installations. And then go ahead and also search and install JavaScript TypeScript 90. It is by Microsoft. Come and search for JavaScript. This one here, it is by Microsoft. Also installed. It has about 6 plus million active installations. Then come and search for live server. Search for live server. Install this one here. It has about 73 million installations, something which has an icon like this. So after all those installations, you can now come and create a project. Shall open a folder. I'll go to the desktop and I create a folder. Here I'm on Linux, but if you're on Windows or Mac, you'll be able to follow along with the same steps. I'll create a folder and say website. So website folder I'll open. So here I'll create a file named index.html. I'll also create a file named index.js within this folder which I created, website. Index.js for the JavaScript. Create another file, and this is the styles, call it styles.css. So I'll come to the index and I'll write my HTML elements here. Press or click the exclamation and press tab. You'll have some sample code here, and you can create some paragraph tags here. Actually it is trying to pull that. Can create some paragraph tags here. I don't know, it is trying to create some paragraph tags here like this. It is AI messing up everything. Okay, something like this. So after creating this, we now have to, you can add the JavaScript, add the CSS, link it to the HTML. So for us to view this in the browser, come and right click on the HTML file and click on open with live server. So it will open over here, and in case you want to work along while seeing exactly what is happening, you can put it alongside here. Then also have Visual Studio Code just besides like this. I don't know, my screen is kinda small. Let me try to reduce. So I can have both of these windows somewhere here like this. So whatever I make any changes here, let me say this one is misbehaving. Let me say I add another paragraph tag. I don't know why it is pulling this backwards. Let me add enough space. When I add another paragraph tag like this, and add some text, immediately it is saving. Remember, on my Visual Studio Code here, I have autosave on. Come to File, then click on autosave. So whenever changes are made, it reflects straight away in the browser, the first project. And whenever changes are saved, it automatically refreshes in the browser. So that is how you can use Visual Studio Code to write JavaScript, HTML, and CSS code. Alright, let us start this section. Now, before we start, there are key questions which you may be interested in knowing. I'm still your instructor, Emmanuel Gidudu, for now. Now, there are several things you may be asking yourself. These are some of the key questions you should ask yourself before we start. Provoke your minds before we start. Now, in the phases of software development, we have the requirements gathering stage, the planning, design, development, testing, deployment, and maintenance. So the questions are, do you have all the information required before we start this project? So that is an example, the cost price, the selling price. What do you expect to change? Because you can't develop this project expecting it to work for 100 years. You must prospect any changes, so note down the changes. Perhaps move down to the client and ask questions. Then document the findings about the project. Now, if it is this trader in town, I'll go down to the trader in town and I say, what else do you need? What else do you think this business will change? After 2 years, what do you expect? So in my maintenance stage, after I've deployed and given it to the client, I'll go back down and start working on basing on what I collected from the trader. So plan the duration you'll take on the project. So resources you'll need, e.g. the software, etc. So create your design on paper. An example is the interface. So this interface, write it on paper. How do you want it to look? So if it is displaying maybe, should I say, window components, how do you want them to appear? You can write them on paper, draw them on paper, and then you can implement it. So create your design, draw it on paper. If it is a database, write down the structure, how the tables will look like, then the relationships, etc. So another key thing to look out here for, write and implement the code finally. So here, before you write the code, feel free to write it down on paper. So before you go on PC to write, test the application to ensure functionality meets user requirements. So test the application during development, then after development, perhaps get somebody to help you test the application. Then later on, deliver the product to the user or the client. So do not sit back and relax after you have delivered the product to the client. Always maintain such that you can stay live in the field. So we shall proceed here. Now, I know you may be asking a question in your minds, mostly if you're a student of computer science, information technology, or another ICT field. Now, what is the purpose? What's the relevancy of this course to me? Then you may also be asking yourself, I don't have a portfolio. How will I land a job? So the question here is, what if I'm a computer science student who needs to build my portfolio? So for every job advertised, they always ask for experience. Unfortunately, you can't get experience when you have not worked, and you can't work when you have no experience. So that circle is very terrible, moving around. So my answer is very simple. Now, while you're outside there, somebody may tell you, please build a tic-tac-toe. This may end you into mess. So I'm saying build real-world applications that solve real-world problems. So remember, as a computer scientist, science is there to solve problems. So always look out for problems. So look around your environment to find gaps. Actually, look for gaps, either in existing systems or where there is no ICT integration. So look out in supermarkets, check their operations. Go to schools, check their operations, from handling stock, then admissions, universities, check out colleges, then submitting results, reporting. So all those are things you can look out for. Microfinance institutions, NGOs, then individuals. Meet an individual. Perhaps an individual needs a website. So meet individuals and try to interact with them. What are they up to? So you can do an undercover investigation. If you don't want to go on ground, you can do an undercover investigation and gain insight on their operations. So, or go on ground like I mentioned. Now, for example, we are not just talking theory here. My intention is always to solve problems. I don't teach theory. So even though theory is what builds us to be what we are, but I like building on real matters. So for example, a company X uses a notebook to record their employee arrival and departure times, plus even taking their names. And unfortunately, some days the book gets lost, the notebook gets lost, or even it is spilled, water spills on it, or some other, maybe a juice. So, as a computer scientist, go sit down and create an app to help solve that. So you'll keep refining it. Always create a sketch. You'll always be refining it on the go. So a school X struggles to enroll students who are far away from school. How can you help? Go sit down, create a web application. You can even start as low as creating a Google form where students submit their names and their personal details, and then their school enrolls them, they pay, something like that. Just think about how to solve a problem. Do you notice a company with no website, or it has no brand? Please find out where to fix, find a problem to fix. So design for them a website. Now, if a client fails to take your product, don't be frustrated and say this is now the start and the end. Use those projects you have developed on your portfolio to showcase in case you're asked for experience. Now you have something to show. So you can also go ahead to visit freelancing sites like freelancer.com. You can visit Upwork, then other freelancing sites. Get projects which clients have posted for support. So find that project. Imagine you're really doing it. So sit down, do it like you're doing it for a client. So after that, put that on your portfolio. So with AI in play, think about how a company Y can get its clients effortlessly. How can it email its clients without always somebody sitting on the PC to say, I have to send messages to the clients. So create a web portal for institutions. Host the portal, manage the portal for the institution. You will be employing yourself. So volunteer for IT support or in other roles. So when you volunteer, it is not a must that you will have to volunteer, but if you realize there is no room you're getting into the industry, you can find volunteering roles. That is where you learn more, in case you just feel your knowledge is not sufficient enough. So finally, go out on social media, showcase the projects you've accomplished. So that is how people recognize that so and so actually exists, and this is what he has done. So in this project, I'll try as much as possible to integrate all whatever I've mentioned. So go ahead, finish up here, then we shall meet again. Alright, welcome back. Now we are introducing the JavaScript version of it, where we are going to create a website to help us to solve the problem which we had mentioned earlier of a trader having to calculate the profit and the percentage profit when he has collected his results, having the cost price and the selling price of his commodities. Now, we shall be guided by these learning outcomes, which we should have accomplished by the end of this section. So, by the end of this section, you should be able to declare and manage variables using the length keyword. That one we shall see it. We shall also be able to create and invoke JavaScript functions, dynamically create and manipulate HTML elements. So, this website or this project, we are going to combine CSS, JavaScript, and HTML, because behind every website there is HTML standing behind it. Whether you've created it with WordPress or you've simply downloaded a template, everything is written in HTML. So JavaScript and other languages come in to just polish it. So we shall apply CSS styles programmatically, shall also perform arithmetic operations and display results in a web page. Then we shall also develop a simple interactive application or web application. But this one will just be a simple website. So we shall start with what is in the project, an overview of the project. Now this is the HTML. This is the HTML we have written. This is the CSS or the cascading style sheets. HTML stands for hypertext markup language. This is the JavaScript, and this is the CSS cascading style sheets. So this is CSS, and the combination of the two has given birth to, when you come to the index.html, right click and click on open with live server. Let us see it in the browser, and we see the combination of the three, what it has given birth to. And we even test, then we proceed to the next lecture. So it will open our website like this. It's not very beautiful, but I've tried. You know, it is very terrible to work with HTML, but this is how it looks. So this is the section for beans, this is for maize, this is for millet. So you'll come and enter the cost price. I'll enter 230, selling price, I'll enter maybe 456, quantity, I'll enter 78. So I'll come, and now if I try to click here, I've made them read only. You cannot type anything here because the user may mess up by typing something here, because these ones are displays. Click on calculate to calculate the cost price, calculate the selling price, and also the totals, and calculate the profit also. So the same thing, if you entered here some prices like this, then some quantity, also calculate. You'll also be able to calculate the result here, and you realize something downloaded. So we have the two CSV files. If you try to open the beans, remember we computed beans first, then maize. If you try to open the beans, you realize these are some of the records we entered. So if you try to enter to get the one for maize, we shall also have the records we have entered for maize. So that is how the program works. The same thing for the millet. So this is how the program will work. So we shall be able to design all these HTML elements, putting a logo, putting the title, then designing these elements, putting those hovering elements or hovering properties, just to make something interactive. So go ahead, review this section, and let us meet in lecture 1 to proceed with the first section, where we are going to look at how to create the whole layout. How shall we create the layout, the heading, and the logo? So go ahead, finish up here, and we meet there. Alright, welcome back. We are proceeding with now lecture 1. And in lecture 1, we are going to be guided by these learning outcomes. So by this end of this lecture, we expect to create the skeleton sketch of your website, then create div elements in HTML, then create a heading section for your HTML website. So the heading section is the one we saw, which was this section here. So I've called it the heading section. So we shall come back to our questions. So the questions we shall be asking here: what will user input? Where will user input come from in the web page? So in the website, where do you expect the user input to come from? How do you want the users to input the data? So this question, we are going to answer it. So how do we display calculated results dynamically in a web page? So let us go out of this. We now go and create the start of our project. So we shall go and open a new folder. I'll open a new folder. This folder, I'll put it in one of my folders called JavaScript dir. I'll create a new folder here and I'll call it calculator program. So I'll select this folder and click select folder. So within here, I'll click on accept. Within here, I'll come and create using this little button, new file. Come and create a new file. The first file will be index.html. Did I type HTML? Let me rename it index.html. Then the next file will be styles.css. So the last one will be, I'll also call this index.js, JavaScript. JS standing for JavaScript. So I'll alternate this one come at the end. So we shall start by creating the skeleton of this website. Like I had mentioned earlier, behind every website there is HTML. Whether it is a portal, there is HTML behind it. So for us to create a skeleton, come and click or insert exclamation like that, then press a tab. This will insert for us the starting lines of this HTML website. So come over here in the title. The title is what appears in the tab. Should I say the tab? Yes, in the tab here. That is the title. So we shall come back and I put the title. I'll put the title as a calculator website. Just put a title of your choice. So if you come, I think I may be forced to use two windows here, such that the result will be seen in real time. I'll not close this because I will want to view versus what we are going to design. So this is what we shall design. Close this tab. So I'll come and let me minimize the rest of these other windows. Minimize all these, and I'll pull this somewhere here. So I'll come and now open this in the browser. Right click on this index.html file, then open with live server. So our website has nothing so far. It has calculator website. So we shall start with how do you add comments to a website in HTML. you use the left angle bracket, exclamation, then two hyphens. So if you're in Visual Studio Code, it will close the other end by its own. So we shall create the header section. I don't like writing HTML, but we are going to write it here in the header section. But before that, come to File, then click Turn on Autosave, so that whatever you do is saved automatically. So come here, we shall create the header section. Now the header section, we shall use what we call the div elements. The div helps us to organize elements on a website. So whatever is in a website is organized in terms of divs. So the div, say for example, I want to add a heading. So I'll put it inside the div. I'll say div, and the heading I'll use the h1 tag. So the beautiful thing about when you're working with Visual Studio Code is it will always close for you automatically. So when I wrap this into a div, the heading into a div, it means I'm telling HTML that this is now a full element. Don't just take it as a tag. So I'll say this is the profit calculator program. So immediately it saves, you'll see it pop up here. So I'll come, always the div, give your div a class. Shall give it a class or simply an identifier. A class, I'll call it heading 1. So my div, I'll call it heading 1. So based on this website, we have this heading and the logo. So I'll also go and add the logo. I'll add the logo just before this, and I say div. Then I'll put the class as logo or business logo, whatever. So inside here, we shall now come and use the image tag. Shall use the image tag to insert the logo. Shall use the image tag. I'll describe the source. So within our folder, inside here, we shall put an image. So I'll pause the video, I copy the image, and come back and proceed. Okay. Now within my directory here, the one I created, calculator program, I have a folder now having an image. So we are now going to insert this image into the website. So we shall come here and say the source. The source, I'll first of all define the folder path. The folder is images / then the file name. So Visual Studio Code will pick the file name by itself. So you will not need to always define the file name by yourself. So I'll put some old text and I'll say logo. So the logo will appear here and the title. Now what happens? These ones are separate, but I want them to be in the heading section, just like the way you see these two. They're in the same line. So what do? I'll put these two in a single div element. So I'll come and create a single div to group these two. I'll come inside here and I say class. You call it major heading. Let me call it major heading underscore heading. So inside here is where I'm going to paste these two. I'm going to cut this and paste these two, and I'll make sure they are well indented inside here like this. So this one opens and closes here. Actually, for best readability, you can push this one inwards. So this one opens, closes, closes here. So this is our website. Now, what next? We now have to go and style these two. So to style them, we pick them by their classes, like this. Then we style them. I'll first of all style this heading. I'll copy this class name, come to CSS. So to style a div class element, use dot, then you follow it with the class name, then open curly brackets and press enter. So I'll first of all define how these elements are laid out. So these elements, I want their display to be flex. I want them to be in the same line. So I'll decide their display for the major heading. I'll decide their display to be flex. Then I'll define the margin from the top. Margin from the top to be 50 pixels, such that it is offsetted from the top. So however, whatever I'm doing, it is not happening here. So let me come and link this styles sheet to the HTML file. So to link this, come and write and say, use the link tag. Use the link tag within inside here. We shall link this to the styles sheet. This is style sheet. Then we shall use the hrefs to link it to the styles style.css file. What did I do? Style.css file. So whatever we have done here can be connected here. Let us also come, you do this in the heading section. So let us come down here at the end of the body here, and I'll also create the script. So I'll create the script here, but I'm going to link this. I'm going to link this to source. I'm going to link it to index.js. So I'll also create the script here like that. Just for, I'm supposed to close this one here. Close script. I don't know. I'm supposed to close script here like this. Close the script tag just like this. Written script tag like that. So let us now keep styling this. I'm going to also make modifications on the logo size. I'll copy the class name. I'll come and paste inside here. I'll create another section here. I'll paste the class name, open parentheses, open curly brackets. So I'll define the width of this logo. I'll make it 100 pixels. And then I'll make the height. Let me reduce it to 50. Well, I'm not seeing it reduce. Let me reduce it to 50 pixels. I don't know why it is not responding. Let me call it, I don't know. Okay, let me define it as the image. Let me define the image, not the logo. Let me define the image tag. When you're defining the image tag, you don't add the dot. Let me define the image. So if it is the image, it is not changing. Let me put 50 pixels by 50. It is not still responding. Let me see what I've left out inside here. I need to specify what have I left out, because it is not responding even though I'm trying to refer to it. Let me see. Let me pause this video and then I come back and check where it is. Alright, I think let us pause this section from here because it has been long. Then we shall come back and correct that from the next section. So go ahead, make the heading of your HTML website, and we shall come back and proceed. Alright, welcome back. Now it happens that we broke off lecture 1 when we were working on the heading section. Then unfortunately it was behaving like the image doesn't want to respond to my adjustments in the CSS. but it seems like my PC had frozen. So if I come and reduce here to 150, you realize the object or the image also responds. So I'll make it 150 by 150. So I'll go and look for the measure. Remember we said we can group. An example, let me remove this. An example, this is one element. Inside it we have an image. This is another element. Inside it we have an h1 tag. So this is the measure group, the measure heading. So I'll go to the measure heading and I'll do something like align items. I'll align them to the center, just like this. So there are no changes yet, but we shall have not to worry. So let us go to what we are going to build in this lecture. We shall be guided by this learning outcome. We should be able to create input boxes, buttons and labels. And then we shall be guided by the following questions. So what type of incorrect or malicious input could break this program? So this is a critical question in case you're building it for production. Which parts of this project should never be trusted if implemented only in JavaScript? And the question is why? Then the next question is, what if this project could be valuable? What information in this project could be valuable to an attacker if exposed? Just in case maybe you're built with a database and we're asking which information can be very valuable to attackers. So let us go and start building the next section. In this section we are going to build input boxes. So the input boxes will help us to capture the data. So we are going to follow this structure here, a structure like this. We shall first build this area. So in this website we have, this is a label, this is a text box, label, text box. Then this can be like a title. So I'll come and construct the title using h2 tag. I'll use the h2 tag. So the h2 tag, I'll start with the maize stock. Just call it stock like that. So as usual, like I mentioned earlier, it is usually good to put them in div classes. Create a div like this, so paste it inside, and we shall call this div class commodity. I'll just call it CMDT, commodity. So I'll come and start building my elements. I'll start with the input box for cost price for beans. So I'll start here with maize. So I'll come and I say create a div class, and I'll call this class input. I'll start with the label. This is label 1. I'll just call it label 1. So this label, I'll come and create a label here, and this label I'll give it some text. Let me first give it an ID. I'll not use an ID. Let me use class. Let me use a class. I'll call it anyway. I don't think whether I should use a class. Let me leave it plain for now. So I'll give it a label. I'll give it a name like enter the cost price like this. So at the end here put a BR for a line break, and then I'll come and create an input box. I hope I've closed the label here. Okay, I'll come and create an input box. Input, this is a self-closing tag. And then the input box, I'll give it an ID. I'll give it an ID of maize input. Just call it maize input. Just give it a name like that, an ID like that. Then I'll set type. It will carry text. I'll put a placeholder. I will say type cost price. Type cost price, just like this. I'll also put a line break like this. So this will be the first one. I'll call this the first, should I call it label 1? Let me come back and I see it in the browser. I have something like this. So I'll proceed. I don't know whether I should group these as one, but I may not group them as one. I may separate them. I may not group them as one, these ones here. Anyway, let them be like that. But I would prefer if each of these would have their own divs like this. They be grouped on their own. Even this one, I'll give it its own div like this, such that it will be easier for me to work with them. So if I give this a div, it will be class label 1. This will be class input 1. Just give it input 1. So I'll create another one, label and input box, for the selling price. Give some space for readability. I think yes, that is okay. I'll leave it with label 1, but I change this to selling price. And then this one I'll leave it with the class input 1. And then this one I'll just change it to cost price, to the selling price. I'll change this to, remember this is an ID. IDs should be unique. Class names can resemble, but IDs should be unique. So I'll come this and I say this is beans input. Wait a minute, this is maize. It is still maize input, but this was cost price, not maize, sorry. This is cost. I'll call it cost price input. So now I'll call it selling price input. So I'll duplicate this. I'll duplicate with the label, because if you look at the original website, we have label. Actually, the quantity, the only one which has the label also. So I'll copy this with its label. I'll add double space, something like that, and I'll paste it here. Leave it with label 1. So now I'll say enter the quantity sold. So this will be quantity input. Then this will be type the quantity, just like this. So remember, we are putting line breaks. I hope they are working. So we shall have something like this. Let us go and add the inputs for the total cost price and the total selling price, then the percentage profit. I think those are the ones. I'll copy this input box. Paste it here. So I'll leave it with the name, the class name input. I'll call this profit input. Then I'll come and change this to, actually I'll not put anything here apart from profit here, just like that. The rest I'll leave it the way it is. I'll paste another one. Actually, before profit shall have the total cost price. I'll paste another one here. This one will be total cost price. ID will be total cost. Let me just leave it as total cost, and I'll say total cost here. Likewise, I'll put another one in between here. Actually, it was supposed to be this one. Now let me cut it out, give enough space for readability. This one will be now total selling input. So we shall say total selling price here, just like that. Shall also say total cost price here. So this is profit. Let us make the last one for percentage profit. I'll just call this percent profit, and then I'll say percentage profit here, percentage profit here, just like that. So if you come and look at this, shall have an arrangement like this with their title. So we shall do the same. Remember, I said it is good to group them. Now all these ones with their label here, I'm going to put them under one div. So I'll put them under one collection. I'll create a div class here, and I'll give it a class name. Maize category. Just call it cut, like that. So I'll copy all these ones and I paste them inside here. I'll cut this, paste them within. Hope they have been grouped well. These ones are out. I'll select all these ones and push them inwards, so they will be like this. So when I'm styling, I will now work on them in groups. I'll work on it as this is one group. Remember, the group starts here and ends here. So I would beg we end here, and then we resume again in lecture 3, where we are going to manipulate this to create more items. This was for maize, we create for beans and millet. So go ahead, practice this section, then we meet in the next one. Alright, welcome back. Now we are proceeding to lecture 3. Lecture 3 we shall be guided by this learning outcome. By the end of this section, you should be able to create HTML elements for the product, like we have said earlier in the previous lecture, and align them well without CSS. We shall align them without CSS. And then there's a very big question here. How do we extend this web application to accommodate several other products? Remember, we are claiming here that we are going to add another product, then add another one, then add another one. So the question is, how can we extend this to accommodate several other products? So that's a very big question, which is on your table. So let us proceed to create another product. I'll create another one here, create a comment, and say I'll follow the beans category here, follow the beans category. Then lastly, always put enough space such that it is readable. Lastly, put the millet category. So copy the whole of this category of maize. We shall just change the class name actually, because all these ones actually, even IDs, because IDs cannot should not be the same. So copy this, come just below here, and I paste them here. Then I'll do the same for millet, just like that. So if you come careful and look at this, we go back to our site, we shall have 3 categories here. We shall have maize, maize, maize. We now have to edit. We have now to edit. This is not maize. This is now the beans category. The beans category. And then this is now beans. We proceed. I think the rest is okay. Shall come here where we shall change this to the millet category. Then we shall also change this to millet stock. Millet stock. I think the rest is okay. So if there is any jam, we shall rectify from there. Let us now go and do some formatting in CSS. Look at it. This is how it looks. So let us first of all, remember I want all of them, all these 3 categories, maize, beans, and millet, to be in one major div class. So I'll create a div class, a div with a class name. I'll call it row 1. So I want to align them like this. So I'll create a row 1. I'll cut all these ones, all these 3 categories. I'll cut them out and I'll paste them within. So I'm creating a big category which will house all of them, just like this. So I've housed all of them within one category. So I'm going to copy this category name, row 1, and I'll come and style it from here. So like we said, when you're referring to a class name, you start with a dot, then followed by the class name. So I'll start with the display of these elements. I'll display them in a flex manner. So they'll have to appear like this, but they are congested, they are tied to each other. So I'll come and refer to each single category now. Let me go to the maize category. Dot maize. I think you'll see now, in case you split them, you're able to work on them as sections. So this is a section, they are not sections, but we have made them into like sections. So what are we going to do? I've referred to maize cut. So the maize category is the first one here. So we have to separate it from these 2. So I'll first of all define padding from the left. I'll define padding from the right. Let me define it as 30 pixels. So if you define, you can come and check and see what happens. There's space here. I'll define padding from the right, padding from the left, sorry. I'll also define 30 pixels, just like this. And if you come, it has extended from the right. So let me also define for this one also. Remember they are the same, so I'll just copy this and I paste here, and I just change the class name from here, and I say this is beans. And I'll also do the same for millet. So that is the beauty of making them to look identical. So we shall have something like this. So let me also align elements in row 1. Align items. Let me align them in the center. And then I think now I should work on increasing their length and their height. So before I increase their length and their height, if you look at these elements, they are squeezed on each other. Let us separate them. So to separate them, we shall come back to our HTML. So the input boxes are having the names input 1. So copy the input 1 class name, come and paste it here. And then we shall have to do padding top. Shall do padding top and bottom. Just make it 5 pixels. And then do also padding from the bottom. Padding from the bottom, also make it 5 pixels. So you realize all of them, because we gave them the same class names, so you don't have to waste a lot of time referring to each element. So I think the spacing is sufficient. So we shall go back to let me use the 7 pixels. Let me use 7 or 8, something like that. So let us also go and work on what should we work on? Let us work on what else is common. What else is common? Don't know what else is common. So we also need to extend this to the left side. This one sits in the center, and actually apply borders on these ones here. So come back to the styles. Remember, beans is taken as a category, maize is taken as a category, as we see here. It's a category, this a category, this a category. So we're going to come back to the category here of maize, and we shall say align items, shall put them in the center for maize in case, and then we shall go and apply a border, and not apply a border with radius, just apply a border of 2 pixels, dark or just black, solid. Let me use solid, not dotted. So you'll have a border like this around maize. So we can also copy these two other elements we have added, and we just paste for the rest of these other categories, and we shall have something like this. So it looks like they are again attaching to each other. So you can come and test. What if you increase the padding? The padding is the spacing between, let us say this element ends here. It is the spacing between this element and where another element ends. So what we shall do, maybe, let me start with the maize, so that I remove the margin from the left. I extend the margin from the left. So come and say margin left. Let me make it from the left. If you look at this item, I want to push it somewhere here, so I'll make it from the left. Let me make it 600 pixels. 600 pixels. This is not still. Let me put it somewhere here. Let me specify 800. So margin from the left is simply extending it from the left, the distance from the left. This is the left, right? So extending it from the left, we are putting it somewhere here. So margin from the left, I'll make 800 pixels. So I'll make, for beans, I'll make it 500. Then for this one, I'll make it just 100 from the left side, that they are not on the margin. I think this one, I've pushed him very far. So let me pull this one back to 300 and pull this one back to 500. So they'll all now coexist just like this. So from the top, the whole of this row remember this row is carrying the whole of these ones. Let me first paint it such that maybe you can see it well. Let me give this row a border. I'll also give it 1 pixels. Green, let me give it a green border. Green and solid. So if you come and see, look at this, shall have a green border around all these ones like this. So we can go and do much more on that by extending it from these top headers. So to extend it, I'll specify margin from the top for this row 1. Margin from the top, I'll specify 50 pixels. This just try and error, it has extended well. So these categories, let me also extend them from away from this line. I'll also specify margin from top. This is just try and error. I'll specify 10 pixels. That is for maize. This is okay, it has extended away from this line. So actually let me make it 20. So I'll copy this and paste for other categories, just like this. Just like this. So if we come back, we shall see something very beautiful like this. So we shall also go for margin. Sorry, I will rest this. We shall also go for margin at the bottom. Margin at the bottom, we shall also still make it 20 pixels. Make it 20 pixels. So we shall also copy this, we apply to other categories, just like this. Margin top, margin bottom. So we shall have something like this. So what is remaining now is we can leave it like this, or we can increase it further. So we can come back and now apply colors. We shall go back to the main section. This main section, I will not apply a color. Let me go to the first category of the row. I will not apply a color. Let me go to the maize category and apply a background color. I will apply a light blue. Can choose light blue. I'll come for this one. I'll also apply a background color. I'll apply a different one. I like light colors. Light green. I'll also come for this one. I'll apply a background color. This one I'll apply a light. Do we have light yellow? If I had it, I would pull it out here. So we shall have things beautifully stipulated here like this. So what is now missing is for us to add the buttons. So let us pause on this section. We come back in the next lecture and we look at how can we add the command buttons here, down here, which will help us to compute or do the calculations. So go ahead, practice this section, then come back and we proceed. Alright, welcome back. Now let us go ahead to add a button, like the way you see a button down here, these 3 buttons. So this button, we shall come and go back to our HTML. We shall start with the first category of maize. This first category of maize, we shall add a button here. We shall add the button and we say button. Shall close. This button shall give it an ID. Shall give it an ID of the maize. I don't know if I make it, actually it should be different. Shall call it maize btn. So we shall put some text on it. This text we shall call it calculate maize profit, just like this. So this is the button. So if you come back, we should see it added to our website down here. So unfortunately, remember we said it is good to put everything in a div class. So I'll cut this. I'll also create a div here, and I'll give it a class name like the rest input, such that it will be spaced automatically based on what I've already described. So if you come back to your website, you realize it has also been formatted because I'd already defined input somewhere here. So come back and duplicate this. Shall just change the ID name. Shall just change the ID and the description here. Shall paste it for the next item. Shall change this to beans. Then we shall change this to beans, just like this. We shall do the same for the last item. Shall change this to millet. Change this to millet, just like this. So if we come back to our website, we shall have the button down there. So what next? Let us go and work on the heading also. The heading, let me push this to the left, so which means I will use left margin equals to maybe like 400 pixels. It will be sent to the middle somewhere here. So come back and go to CSS. I'm going to go to the first element, go back to the top here. So I want to send this one here. So its class name is heading 1. Copy the class name. Come and I think I do written heading 1 somewhere, not yet. So come here and paste heading 1 here. Remember it is a class. So you start with a dot, then open quotes, open curly brackets. So I'll define the margin left, margin to the left. I don't love writing HTML, but for this project we shall write it. Margin left, I'll specify 400 pixels. So you realize it comes to the center. So let me extend even as far as 500 pixels. So I'll go to its friend. I'll go to its friend heading 1, logo. Go to its friend logo. I'll do the same dot logo, open curly brackets. So within we shall also write margin left because we realized is too attached to the extreme here. So also margin left, I'll also make just the 50 pixels. So immediately extend this one to the left, this one extends also. So at times you have to fix this in position. I'll leave them the way they are because I don't intend to add very many other objects. So this is how we would have our program, just like this. So let us go ahead and now work on I think this width is not very good. Let me define the width of these sections. So I'll come back to the cuts, maize cut, beans cut. So I'll come to this cut and I'll define the width. The width, let me just try 300 pixels. 300 pixels, this is okay. 300, I think I'll even make it more than 300. So I'll come back and make it 300. But remember, immediately I add it, it is pushing one of these items far to the left. So I'll reduce the left margin to 200. Reduce the left margin to 200, something like this. I'll also reduce this one's left margin beans, reduce it to 100. So I'll come and give them some widths. Copy this, apply it here, apply it here, just like this. So they will be of this size. So I can extend this side at the balance. The left margin here, I can push it Now let me make this 350. Let me make this 350, just like this. 350, 350, 350 as the width. So I think you can keep playing like that so that it balances. So after that, let me go and now work on the length of these individual elements, that they are a little bit having some reasonable length. So the length, let me look at something like an input box like this one. They are having IDs. They are having IDs. What if you try on input? Let me try on input 1. Let me try on input 1, and I say it will not work the way I'm thinking. If I say height, there's height. If I say width, I'll specify 250 pixels. Let me have a look. None of them has responded. Let me try to remove. Let me make it big so that I can see whether it is responding or not. Let me make it 500. No way, they don't respond. They want me to specify them individually. So for me to specify them individually, I will not refuse. I'll come back to the inputs. They have IDs, cost, price, input. I'll copy this name. Now these IDs, I think they are the same for these other elements also. So I'll make cost price input, selling price input. Okay, I'll come back here. Now to reference IDs, we use a hash instead of a full stop. So instead of a dot. So we shall specify hash cost price, comma, then we shall also have hash selling price. Shall also have a hash. Then I think which other elements do we have? We have the selling price, have the quantity input, have the quantity input. So in most cases it is better to copy so that you don't write errors. Total cost input, shall put again a hash, total cost input, shall put another hash, then this is total selling input, just like that. I think this is here, total selling input, then profit input, then percent profit input. I'll copy this. So in case you want to write them at once, you can separate them with commas like that, and then put them on just one line. This is total, this is percent, we call it percent, where is it? Percent profit input. This is percent profit input. So open curly brackets and press enter. So I will define their widths. And I say width equals to 250 pixels. Remember, they had refused to adjust. I think they will adjust all of them at once. Just like that. I can now define their height as well. Find their height. I'll say height, let me give them 20 pixels. Okay, that is okay. Now, we had the hovering aspect. When you pass a mouse over these elements, they change color. So I'll come and refer to all these ones here. Actually, not these ones. I'll refer to these three, which ones here? I'll refer to the first category, which is the cut one. So I'll come and say .millet cut, then colon hover, select hover, open curly brackets. Then here we shall say, when you hover, I want to see a background color of light. This one is come back. This one is I'm starting with the millet. So millet I want it to change to light blue. Millet I want it to change to light blue. When you hover, let it change to light blue. So I'll keep alternating them like that. So when you come and hover on millet, you will see the color has changed. No, this one, this is the original. This is the one we are working on. When you hover a mouse on it, the color changes. So let us change this one to, this was light yellow. Let us change the one for beans to light yellow, just like that. Shall change the one for maize to maize. This is light. Let me change it now. This one changes to light blue. Let me change this one now to light green. Light green, just like that. So we have done some hovers. Let us go for the buttons also. For these buttons, the buttons are carrying class name input 1. Actually, all of them are having input 1. Let me change the buttons to have input 2, class name input 2, because I don't want the others to be also affected. Input 2, and this is input 2. So I'll copy their class names. I'll come to CSS and I start styling them. Also I want to apply a hover element. So the hover, I want it also to change with the background color. All of them I want them to change to red. Anyway, red is too thick. Let me change it to yellow. Let me go for orange. Let me go for orange like that. So if you hover on them, where did I touch? I touched on the group. I need to go for the item themselves. I have maize button, I have the millet button. So I'll copy their class names. Let me come and change quickly here. I'll say hash. Actually, not class names, their IDs. So hash, put the hover element for that. For millet, copy this. Then also apply hover element for maize, just like this. So last one, this is beans. So I hope there's a comma here. Let's remove this comma. So if you come back, you realize they will change to orange like that. So you can do other things like transform and others. So this brings us to the end of this section. So you can go ahead, practice all around this section. Then you'll come back and proceed with lecture 4. Alright, welcome back. Now we are in lecture 5. Previously in lecture 4 I mentioned that we are going to lecture 4. That was an error. I wanted to say we are going to lecture 5. Now for lecture 5 we are going to proceed with another section, that is designing the elements with CSS. Well, we shall define the height. We are still designing because we have not finished. So we shall come back and look at this section again. we shall come and add, if you look at these buttons here, they are attached to the bottom border. Let us first go and work on them. These buttons have shall just extend the whole of their class input to, because they're inside the class. So if you want to extend, just extend the class. Don't go for the ID, go for the input, go for the class. So input 2, I don't know whether I'd reference it somewhere. No. So I'll go for input 2 dot input 2. So I'll define the margin from the bottom. Margin bottom, I'll just give 5 pixels. And you'll see 5 is less. Let me extend it to 8. So 8 is enough. So when we come to our original site, we have an area here for the total profit from the 3. So we shall come back and also go back to HTML. So this section, I'm adding it outside the major section. Remember, these are the 3 sections, and within these 3 I had the row. This row closes from here, from down here. So I think I can indent this inwards such that it is more readable. Inwards, where is the row? Oh yeah, here. Let me indent this inwards. So I'm selecting, when you click here, hold the shift and click up here, you can select the whole of this section. That's how I'm selecting. It is more easier to select that way. So I'll come down here. That was row 1. Come here and define another row. Define row 2. Row 2. So inside row 2, I'll define a div class, and I'll call this, I'll give it a class name. I'll give it a class name row 2. So within row 2, we are going to create an input box, and these input boxes I may what should I do? I will also, actually it will just be one input box. I'll just copy this input box, paste it here. So I'll call this input 3. This input 3, the ID will be total profit. Give it an ID, total profit. I'll give it I'll say total profit here, just like this. Let us go back and see it. It is somewhere here, hidden somewhere here. It now also requires styling. Let us also style this. Let us start with row 2. Anyway, let me start with row 2. I'll copy the class name dot row 2 dot row 2. So inside here, I will define, I want it to sit somewhere in the middle. So first I will define its margin from the left. Margin from the left, I will define 600 pixels. It will sit somewhere there. Margin from the top. Margin from the top, I will define 20 pixels. 20 pixels, like this. If you come and see, it has extended from the top. Let me make it 50. Let me give it a border. Let me give this a border. I'll give border radius of let me just give it a border of 1 pixel, solid black dotted. Let me make it dotted. So it is something like this. So unfortunately, let me define What else should I define? Let me define of course we need to make sure it also catches this other side. Let me define what else should I define? Let me come and work on the element itself. Come and work on the element itself. I'll pick this by ID. Actually, I wouldn't have made the row. Let me come back to this. I'll remove this, and I turn this to the inputs array, and to apply all this to inputs array dot inputs array. So let me go back and I see. So it has that, that's okay. Let me come and apply something to I want it to sit where. Let me apply some padding around this item, padding around this element, padding from, let me start with the top, padding top, bottom and top. Actually I want to put on bottom and top. Let me put 10 pixels such that it extends away from this section. Okay, let me make it 20. So I'll do the same padding to the top. I'll also make it 20 pixels, just like this. So I should find a way, because this one is extending from the left. Let me remove this margin from the left, and I'll have it occupy the whole of this section like this. So let me go to, let me just put here align elements, align item in the center. So we shall extend this, let me see, we shall extend this ID, shall pick this input box itself by its ID, shall pick it by its ID, that is hash, attach its ID. So in attach its ID, I'll say margin from the left, I'll pull it from the left. From the left, I'll take it 500 pixels. So it will come in the center by its own. Let me put it to 700, something like that. Let me define its height. Its height, let me define 30 pixels. I'll define its width. Width, I'll define 200 pixels. So you shall have something like this, but I'll need it longer, so I'll make this, I don't know, width, I'll make it, okay, something like that. So its text, let me go to text align, let its text be aligned in the center, like that. So we can also give a color, to this section. Can give a color, say background color. Let me give it gray. I don't know whether I have gray here. And then I'll come and do some hovering over this very area. I'll say this element, then we shall apply the hover, so that when the mouse passes over it, we shall see something different. Background color, let me make it red. And the font color, I'll make it white. In case the background changes to red, the font color changes to white. So I hope it is turning the way I was expecting. Changes red, the color changes to white. It's not changing anyway. So you can do a lot and style this to look exactly the way this one was looking. So we have tried. I'm sure if it is credit, can credit ourselves something. So go ahead, finish up here, as we shall come back and we start with now doing the serious calculation after doing all this HTML. So some of the elements I may not have added, but go ahead and complete everything, and then return back and proceed to lecture 6. Alright, we'll come back to lecture 6. Now in lecture 6, we still proceed. We are going to still design HTML elements. So design HTML elements by adding, I think I'd adding twice here, sorry, by adding background colors and other features. So I've added some background colors. Let us go and check what I've not added from this original. I've not added this horizontal rule. I think let me go and add that horizontal rule. Come just above after this section, then just in the middle here. So I'll create a div here. Remember I said the best way to organize elements is to create div classes. I'll give it a class name hrole, just like that. So within here I'll define the horizontal rule, just like that. This horizontal rule, I'll define its width from here. Its width I'll define 500 pixels. I hope I will find it well. Just like this. Let me see if I extend it to 700. 700, it also increases. Let me call this horizontal rule. I'll call it from down here. Always jump a line for readability, a line or two. So don't horizontal h rule. I'll define its let me start with the padding from the top, so that it is not too close to the top. Padding top, make it 5 pixels, and then padding from the bottom, I'll make it also 5 pixels. And then what else? I think the margin, okay, it is okay, but let me check the margin. Anyway, where it is okay. So let me also go and add some transform to these buttons. These ones I've added some translation. Where is the original? I think this is the original. I've added some transform on these buttons, but I may only do for these buttons here. So I'll do for these buttons so that when you hover on them, their lengths will increase. So come back to CSS here, then come to the command buttons. Where are they? Come up here, they're here. So come up here and say transform. We shall use the scale, whereby I'll give it 2 and 1. So if you hover on it, that's too much. This is too much. Let me give it 1 and 1. 1 and 1. I think that one has no effect. Let me give it 1 and 1.5. 1.2. I think it still has not much effect. Anyway, there's some glowing effect. So when you make it like this, it makes it be again, it be kind of weird. Unless if we want to do it like that, then we may, because doing it like that, we may turn this to 1.5. 1.5. So if you hover on it, it will increase like that. Let me increase its width the other side to 2. So when you hover on it, it becomes like that. We need this to be longer. So we shall come back and specify, this is 1.1. So I think this one can make sense in case you can modify to something better. So let me go and apply some border radius on these three items, these three categories: maize, beans, and millet. Come and do some, what is that, border radius. I'll do 30 pixels. I'll start with the maize. I think that looks more fancy. Come and apply it the same to this element, the same to this element. So there's a lot to keep twisting, such that the end product will look nice. So just like this. So I think we shall pause here with the HTML and the CSS, then we now jump to the JavaScript file. So go ahead, practice this section, and then make sure you do more research in case you want to do more styling. An example is when the screen size changes. So when the screen size changes, you realize the page is not responsive. So you can go ahead and find out how you can accomplish that, because here I'm working on a desktop screen. Alright, go ahead, finish up here, and then get me in the next section. Alright, welcome back. Now we are going to lecture 7, and in this lecture we are going to ensure by the end of it we gain a basic understanding of JavaScript variables. Actually, here we are just going to introduce JavaScript, then we shall start working with it. Then we shall also make sure you're able to use JavaScript to place content into HTML. So we have questions here to pose. What information must we collect per product? Remember, we have drawn a simple layout. So the question is, which information should you collect per product? Which values are inputs? Which values are outputs, if you look at this? So how do you explain profit in one sentence? Maybe like a business pro. Can profit ever be negative? If it is negative, how do you flag it otherwise? Why is quantity sold necessary in this calculation? So if there is no quantity sold, now what are we doing? It means even the profit is not there, you can't get profit on nothing sold. How should the program respond to negative quantities? If the quantity is negative, what should we do? So let us start straight away. Now open your project and now go to the JavaScript file. Remember, we linked the JavaScript earlier down here. So we shall come and start writing our JavaScript here. Now the first thing we are going to look at is how to declare variables. To declare variables, first I'll usually write comments. To comment lines of code in JavaScript, use 2 forward slashes like that. So I'll add a comment and I say variable declaration, and I'll say, in case you're familiar with how to write most of the syntax in C++, there's a lot which is kind of related, and Java. So we are going to look at how we declare a variable. Unlike C and C++, where you define a variable using the return type, starting with the return type, here we shall use the length keyword. Some people use the var keyword. I'll use the length. So you write the word length, then followed by the variable name. So this variable, I'll call it variable x. So let x, simply like that. Then I'll call another variable let y, like that. Then I'll call another variable let z. So you must end the line with a semicolon. So you can come and assign values. Let x be equals to 2, and let y be equals to 4. Let y be equals to 4, and let z be equals to x plus y, just like that. So how do we display the output? To display the output, we use console.log, Now it will just display the output and put in quotes and same z is equals to, then you shall concatenate this to the result of z. Actually z is small. Then you shall put a semicolon. So for us to see this, we shall have to just save changes and it will have to show up in the browser. But where? Come to your, I'm using Chrome. So in case you're using Firefox, there may be some simple twist. Come and right click in an empty space and click on inspect. Then come to cancel. So actually it had already saved itself because my Visual Studio Code is having autosave on. But immediately you save, you must see the result. Let me pull the windows to be sitting just next to each other like this. So when you look at 4 plus 2, you get 6. So that is how you do play with those variables. So here, this is operations. We shall look at operations in the next lecture. So to declare variables, you just have to use the length keyword, and in case maybe you change this to 7, it will automatically refresh and you will see the result is 9. Z is equals to 9. So you can show content in the console by simply, I'll remove these variables, and anyway they can remain there. You can show content in the console by simply using console.log, and you show something in the console the way you saw. You can say console.log, then I'll say my name just like this. So when it saves, you'll see the name reflect in the console here, just like that. So the next thing we want to look at, how do you get values from an HTML element? So an example, I'll remove this. So we have seen how we refer variables. So I want to put some content into an HTML element. Let us say I want to put some content in, let me create a label here. Let me create a label here. Where have I created it from? Yes, yeah. Let me create a label here, and I say call it label. So this label, I'll not give it any text. I'll give it an ID of my label. So if I want to put some content, because if you come to your website, down here you'll not see the label. So I'll pull this window somewhere here. So when you come to down here, I've just added a label just below here, but you can't see it. So for me to see that content, we use what we call, let me come back to my JavaScript. So I'll declare a variable, I'll call it my label. So my label. So for us to, okay, that's not what I wanted to do. For us to put some content into this label, which I'll put here, which is not being seen. So we shall refer to this document, we are meaning the HTML document, dot get element by ID. Then we shall copy the ID of this label. I've copied it already, my label. Then come and paste it in the pair of parentheses inside the quotes. Then dot inner HTML is equals to, this is my label. Actually, I'm free now. I think I'm free to turn off this console. So when you come down here, I don't know whether it has appeared. Yes, this is my label. So I added a label, but I didn't add the text. So you can write content directly into HTML using JavaScript, using .html. Then you can pass the content you want to write, just like that. So if you want to put a value, say for example, I want to put a value inside this text box. So I can go and say I'll use a variable to store the value. I'll call it value. I'll declare a variable value input. So I'll come here and assign value input is equals to document. I'll refer to the HTML document. Then I go and get the ID of this. I'll remove this label. I think it is here. I'll remove it. So I'll come and get the ID of this input box. I think it was named cost price input. So I'll come and get the ID of the cost price input dot get element by ID. So I'll paste the ID within, then dot value is equals to 23. So I can put a value within this text box here, or this input box. So that is how you do work with these placing values within HTML directly, and also putting values within HTML using the elements IDs. So this one we are going to demonstrate it further, because it's the reason why I've brought it, so that we can interact with it. Then when we start introducing it, it will not be something like something which is new. So go ahead, practice all this here, then let us meet in the next lecture and we discuss more about how to compute all those profits, where we shall introduce operators and we use them. Alright, welcome back. Now we have proceeded to lecture 8. Now in lecture 8 we shall be guided by these two learning outcomes. We shall ensure by the end of this section you are able to define and manipulate JavaScript variables. You should be able to also create functions from HTML on-click events or JavaScript event listener. We have these questions which are binding for us to think about. So write the formula for profit per unit, then total profit for one product. So how do you calculate overall profit for all products combined? What is the formula for percentage profit? Which value should be used as the base when calculating the percentage profit, and why? So if you were to choose the total cost price or total selling price, why? Then if cost price is 0, what problem occurs in the percentage profit calculation? So these are logical questions you should reflect on. Why is it better to avoid hard coding prices in the program? So you can reflect on these questions meanwhile we are proceeding. So the first objective is we shall make sure you're able to create variables in JavaScript. So we said in the first section that to create a variable we use let. So we can say let x be equals to 2, and we also say let y be equals to 3 or 4. And we shall also say let z be equals to x plus y. So we can come back and display this in the console.log. So we shall display and say the value of x plus y is equals to, add the addition to concatenate it to the value of z. This is the description, this is now the result. So come to your browser, I'm using Chrome, right click in an empty space, come to inspect, then come to console. We shall see the results at the top here. The value of x plus y is equals to 6. So you can come and just manipulate this and put a / for division. And if you check this, actually let me just minimize this. And if you check this, you'll get 0.5. And if you come and change this to multiplication, it will auto loads. You get 8. 4 times 2 is 8. You put subtraction, you realize the result is -2. So that is how you can basically work with the operators in JavaScript. Now let us go ahead to look at how to use the on-click event. Now we are going straight away now to start with now computing the profit and others. So the question we were having here was, what information must we collect for each product before we can calculate the profit? So we should calculate the cost price, selling price, quantity sold before we calculate the profit. So we shall come back here and find some variables. The first variable will be the cost price. The second variable shall select selling price. Shall also select the quantity sold. Quantity sold. Shall also select profit. Shall also notice profit. This is total cost price. Shall also select total selling price. Then so select profit. So select percentage profit. So how do you use the event listener? The on-click event. Now we have this button here. We want when we click it, something happens. So we shall pick its ID and we use it. How do we use it? Come to your JavaScript, come to your HTML, and come and copy this button's ID. Copy this ID. We are going to use it here. Come and say document dot get element by ID. So you pass the ID within like that. Dot on click is equals to, we shall create a function which will be executed when that button is clicked. So we shall assign the first variable cost price to be equals to document dot get element by ID. So the cost price will be linked to this text box to store a value from this text box, because the user will enter here the value. So that ID is the maize cost price input. So come back to JavaScript dot value. So I think I've written it well. Dot value. I don't know. Let me double check, because I'm supposed to dot value. I think value is not appearing here. Let me double check and come back and proceed. Okay, I've seen it. I'm not supposed to put the colon at the end here. That confused me whether I should add it or not. So we shall come here and also define the selling price is equals to document by get element by ID. This is always better if you just copy this and you duplicate it. This is the selling price. That's why it is better you make something which is just having the same flow. And then this will be quantity sold is equals to document.get element by ID. This was the maize quantity sold. So we shall proceed to, I think if we have this and we have this, we can now calculate the profit. Let's say now compute the profit. Don't forget always to add comments. So here you can add a comment just above here and say declare variables. Then here we are assigning variables to different values from input boxes. So we shall compute the profit. The profit, remember we have declared a variable here already. We shall say profit is equals to, before we even compute the profit, we shall have to compute the total selling price. We shall say total cost price before we compute the selling price is equals to cost price times the quantity sold. So we shall also do for the total selling price is equals to, we shall get the selling price times the quantity sold. So after we have gotten these ones, we shall now do the profit. Profit is equals to total selling price minus total cost price. We shall also compute the percentage profit is equals to, you get the profit out of the total cost price, then multiply this by 100. So these are just calculations. We now have to return the results back to the user. The user entered here, entered here, entered here. So we have to return back the profit, the total cost price, the total selling price, the profit, and the percentage profit. So come back and we do that. So we shall do that by, we shall get document.get element by ID. So the first one is we shall display the total cost price. So the total cost price, I think I'd given them names which are just nearly the same. Let me come and copy one, then I'll just manipulate maize total cost input. So I'll copy the ID. So I'll come and say get element by ID dot value equals, so the total cost price, I've gotten its element from HTML by ID, so I want to display inside there the value of the total cost price. So total cost price is equals to total cost price, just like this. I'll do the same for the rest of the others. This is the total selling input. Total selling input, and it will hold the value of the total selling price. So we shall go to the profit. The profit is in a box or input named maize input. So copy the ID, come and paste it here, is equals to profit. So we are getting this element by its ID dot value, where its inbox input is, we shall put there the profit. So we shall do the same for the percentage profit. Shall paste it here, and we shall change this to maize percentage profit. It's better I copy the ID from here that I don't mess up. Paste it here. So this will be percent profit, just like this. So let us go and test. The user will come here and enter here some values, just like this. Enter the quantity. So when he clicks this button, it must compute. So let me go back and I find out whether I called the button well. Dot on click, this function is okay. And then what else is not okay? I think the rest is okay. Let me refresh this. Let me try to enter my products. Compute. Anyway, it is not showing up. Let me go back and double check, then I come back and we proceed. Okay, I've checked and I've realized the error was here like this. The ID for the maize quantity input had the included price in the middle here. So I just removed the price and I came back to test. So enter some values, enter some quantity and click on calculate maize profit. So we shall have this one, shall have this, shall have this, shall have this. So all these ones we can now do some description on them. Where these ones here, starting with the total cost price, we can do some description on them in case you wish, but for the interest of time I will not do any description on them. So this is how you do simply run the calculations and see them in JavaScript. So in the next section we are now going to look at how can we also do for this. We shall just duplicate this function and also do it for the other product, which is beans. Then duplicate and do for this other item. So go ahead, practice this section, then get me in the next section and we'll proceed. Alright, welcome back. Let us now go to lecture 9. Lecture 9 you shall be guided by this learning outcome. By the end of this section you should be able to perform error handling in real world projects. So you should be able to handle errors in real life projects. And then we have some questions here. How would you display error messages? How would you display error messages differently in this web application? So actually this question I can remove it. So how could a simple project shooter be exploited if deployed without basic security checks? Why is HTTPS important even for small projects that do not handle account level data? What security risks arise when error messages are shown directly to the user? So those are some of the questions in case you're proceeding with the project you should be thinking about. So let us start straight away. So we are going to manipulate this function and we create, remember this was the maize button. We shall just change this to comments, my dear. They are very important. So this is the maize function. So we can copy this and we create another function. This one we shall call it beans, and then we shall create another one. This one also shall change it to beans. Shall come down here, create another one. We shall call this millet. So we shall come back to beans and we start editing. Whenever there is beans, I'll replace with maize only here. So select this, come to edit, then replace. So I'll replace whenever there is maize, replace it with the beans. Hope it will not go through the whole of it. I'll replace the first one, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So beyond there it is going to another area. So I think we have tried to do some simple replacement. Hope it will be perfect. So let us also come here, select this, come to edit, then replace. I want to replace whenever there is maize, I put millet. So don't click on replace all. Just replace one by one. Just like that. It goes back to the top, you can stop. So we now have something like this. That's why these names I made sure they're identical such that I don't use a lot of time making changes. So let me go back to the browser and I test this as an item. I'll enter some product cost price like that, and I'll enter some tentative quantity. So when you click the calculate profit for beans, things don't show up. So I'll come back and double check whereas things not turned up well. This is beans. Let me go back and check. This button is ID. It is beans btn. This is okay. So which means we should now check from the JavaScript here. So it is coming and saying beans cost price input, then beans quantity input. This is okay. Let me just verify and make sure they are the same. Hey, wait a minute. It seems like I didn't change them. So they are having the same IDs as these ones here. So I think there's conflict. So what am I going to do? I'm going to add beans here. Let me just copy this beans word. I'll add it at the start of this. This is part of what we need. I think the calculation will be automatic because I've already added something which looks like this. Total selling input, profit input, percentage. So this will be millet. Just copy this, paste it over here, paste it over here, and then the same, and then the same, likewise. Let us go back to the web and we check. Shall enter some values, just like this, the sum quantity, and we try to calculate. This is okay. Let us try to also calculate some values here. Let us enter some quantity, so calculate. This is also okay. So I think that area is well sorted. So what shall we go to next? We shall now go to error handling. And then error handling, we shall start with this. Now this is what the user will see. So when we refresh, the boxes are cleared. This is what the user sees. So what the user sees is very funny. The user can come where the profit should go, or the total cost price, and the user types there something. So for us to avoid that, we shall make these text boxes or these input boxes which are not going to be accepting our input. We shall make them read only to avoid entering their unnecessary input. So come to the one for maize total cost input. So come at the end here and say read only. The same thing for total selling price. Also make it read only. Profit, the same, make it read only. Percentage profit, do the same, read only. So I'll copy this and I paste for the others which also require read only, such that there's no accidental deletion of data. This is okay. This is okay. So if you come over back to your website, you realize you cannot type here. You cannot type, you cannot type, you cannot type. So these areas are now read only, but they can display values. They are not in a state of disabled. So this one will be storing the total profit. So I would like to leave this as your assessment. So do something with this one also as your own assessment. or take away assignment. Now what if somebody leaves these ones empty and just comes and clicks, tries to compute the profit? Let us show an error message in case these ones are empty. So we shall come back here to JavaScript, and where before the calculations take place, actually before the values are displayed, let us come and do some validation here. Check if input boxes are empty. So we shall come and use the if statement, if logical statement. So here I will say if is not if it is not a number. Actually, somebody may enter something else. Actually, that is the scenario I wanted. Somebody enters here something like this instead of a number. It's the case we want to handle. So if it is not a number, and what is not a number? That is the cost price. If the cost price is not a number, or for or we use two pipe characters like that, and the other one is also not a number. The selling price is also not a number. Then we shall also say or is not a number, that is the quantity sold. What should we display? We shall display an alert. Shall you display an alert, and we say please enter valid numbers in the cost price and cost price, selling price, and quantity sold, just like this. So in case the user had entered something, we can make sure we reflect that message. So we shall go and test. If a user enters something like this, enters here numbers, and tries to compute the profit. Anyway, I think I'd done this for beans, so I'll copy this very one. I do it for millet. I'll do it also for maize. So if we try to enter something which is not understood, enter number, and try to compute, we shall have an error message here. Please enter valid numbers in cost price, selling price, and quantity sold. So that is how you can check. Remember, we posed several questions. What if the cost price is 0 or the selling price is 0? Which message will you flash to the user, just for clarity, so that the user is not lost while using your website? So go ahead and do further data validation. So because here we have seen a case when somebody enters numbers. So in enters numbers, we shall flash a message that no way, you have entered something which is not allowed, even though we have entered it here, and try to compute to reject. So go ahead and also validate in case there are other things you can check through. So go ahead, finish that, and then you come back and proceed in perhaps the last lecture. Alright, welcome back. Now we are now on the final lecture. This final lecture we are going to be guided by these learning outcomes. So by the end of this section, you should be able to create a CSV file to store captured data. Remember, we are capturing the data just raw and it was not going anywhere. So it will be sent to a CSV file. However, we have questions here to ask. How do you modify the program to read data from a file? And then how do you save daily profit records? This is what we are going to answer using this question, using this learning outcome. How could charts be used to visualize profits? What changes are needed to convert this into a monthly report? So, and the other question is, how do you refactor the program to follow object-oriented programming principles? Which parts of this project demonstrate reusability? So these are questions you can reflect on. Let us straight away go to our project. So our project, we are going to start with creating the CSV, and we are going to start with the maze function to create the CSV just below here. Because after the data has been computed, sent to the browser, let us also send the data to the CSV. Shall come and say create CSV file. So I'll come up here and declare 3 arrays. So the first array, I'll call it maze array, like this. Then the next one, I'll call it beans array. This one I shall call it millet array. So we are going to store the data in these arrays. I'll start with the maze array. So come down here where we are dedicating the space for creating our array. So I'll come down here and I create a variable, constant variable named records. I'll name this variable records, and this variable records will help me to create the CSV file. So I'll start with the cost price. Start by capturing the cost price. I'll go to the selling price. I'll go to the total cost price, total selling price. I'll go to the profit, go to the percentage profit, just like that. So I'll come at the end and I put a semicolon like that. So I'll come down here and I call the maze array. So to the maze array, I'm going to push there some values or insert some values from the records, from these records which I've just created here. So I will now push values to it like that. Then I'll come down here and I'll display message and I say console.log. I'll say data added successfully, just like this. So after we have added the data, let us now create the CSV file. Actually, should I say now create? Because I have now to typically write the data to the CSV file. So I'll declare a variable. Let my CSV content be equals to. So I'll declare my CSV content here, and to take up the cost price. Actually, these are, sorry, not content, these are headers. I was supposed to say declare the headers, CSV file headers. So the first header will be, I'll name it cost price. underscore price, then selling underscore price, and then total cost price, then total selling price, and the profit, then the percentage. These are just headers, percentage profit, like the way you may see a table in Excel having headers. So after writing the headers, I'll want to enter a new line. So I'll pass the new line like that. Then I'll now come and create an arrow function which will help me to record, which will help me to take the records from here, which will come from here, and then take them to the new line in the CSV file. So I'll come down here. Did I create arrow? Just like that. So I'll come down here and I'll describe the arrow function. So I'll go to the maze array. Go to the maze array. Dot for each loop, I'll use the for each loop to loop through each element. So the element, I'm calling it R. So I'm calling the element R, whereby I'm now going to get the headers, the header content. Then I will now append more content to it. Sorry, is plus equals. I'll now append more content to it. I'll open quotes. I'll now write it inside here. I'll prefix it with a $sign. And then open curly brackets like this. I'll put here the cost price, like this. I'll do the same. Put a comma, put a $sign. I'll just copy this. Actually, I'll copy and then I'll remove that. I'll remove this so that I'll copy this and I use this. So I'll come here and I put inside here selling price. And I'll come again outside and also say total cost price. Come outside here and I paste this again and I say this is the total selling price. So in case there's some error, we shall come back and check. And then we shall paste it again. This will carry the profit. And then this will carry. What will this one carry? Finally, this one will carry the percentage profit. So at the end here shall come out, and I think I will need to enter a new line after appending this record. So I'll come and enter on a new line like this. So we shall come down here and we define a blob. That's a blob object which will help us to store the file in memory. So we shall create an object in memory called blob. So we shall come down here and say create a constant variable equals to blob is equals to, sorry, how could I assign a variable like that? Cost variable blob is equals to, we shall set it to a new blob a new blob, and a new blob I'll give the file, I'll give it content from this file, from this heading, just like this. Hope I've not erased it. It is inside here. It's inside here like this. And then I'll come and also provide the type. So I'll say type, I'll define the type as open quotes text / CSV, then I'll put a comma, and I'll define the character set. Character set will be equals to UTF space 8. So we shall put a semicolon, then the quote will close, just like this. I'll remove this. So I think it is also highlighting an error here. Let me hope after type I'd put text, then within here let me correct this. I hope, where is the error? With another error. The type is okay, character set is okay. I can't see the error. I hope, let me check here again. I think this bracket here, this bracket should come over here, not where it was, and I think this is a comma. So after creating this object to the memory, we shall now go and create an invisible link, because we want this object to be downloaded. So we shall create an invisible link using a variable, a constant variable. Shall I say cost link is equals to document dot create element. I'll create an element, but an invisible one. Dot create, did I say create? Dot create element. Create element like this. I'll create an element A. So I'll go ahead and link the CSV file to this element. So I'll say link dot href is equals to URL. I'll be connecting it to create object. Create object URL, correct object URL. Then inside here I'll pass the blob. That was the object I passed in memory. So I'll go ahead and now set the download file name, because I want the file to be downloaded with the name. So I'll say link dot download. I download it and assign it a name is equals to, I'll name this one maze.csv, just like that. Close semicolon here. So I'll come here and also create a self or automatically download link.click. It will run itself. So by so doing, I would have created a download button that will download itself automatically. I don't know why these are highlighted, but I hope I defined the array, maze array up here. So it is the one I've used here. Anyway, let us come and see what happens. Shall enter some data. So what we should not forget, what if these ones are negative? What if the profit is negative? How shall we flag it? So immediately you click on run. Did I do for maize? Yes, it was for maize. And immediately I run it. It has not given me the download. Let me run it again. Click on run. I don't see the download. I think I'll have to check. Hey, wait. There's maize.csv which has been downloaded. So if you try to open this, let me go to, okay, it has opened. When you try to open this, you realize we have some data within it. The data we have just added, 34, 345 and others. Let us create again. I shall cancel this. Let me leave it open. Let me put some new data like 7,000, then 8,000, then shall compute. I think the downloaded file has gone there automatically. I think, where is it? Let me click on calculate. When I calculate and I come to downloads, the downloads, there's nothing yet. Try to compute again. There is nothing appearing. Let me refresh this page. Let me enter some values again. Just some tentative values. Then we click on calculate. Let me see whether the download file is there. Come to downloads. It's not there. So let me check through, then I come back and proceed. Okay, now I'd missed out this .r, which would help us to take in the record, this one here. So let us test this again. After modifying and adding the r, let us test this again. I'll enter some sample data like this. I click on calculate. I don't know that you have downloaded anything. I think this is not. Let me go and see. Let me remove this. Let me go back to my code again, and I see where the blunder may be. Okay, here I use the small c, this one here. Let me try to run this again. I'll put here some values, and I calculate this. Let us open the CSV and we see which has been created. Okay, it has the data like this. So this is how you would create the CSV for one of these items. So for us to create for the others, shall just copy this very line of code and we shall paste it down here. So whenever there is maize, shall put beans, like this. Remember we have the array named beans already. This is okay, can take up the same. This is also okay. This is also okay until we reach this point where we were pending this point here. I think after creating it here and adding values, I think that is all, until I want to change the name here to beans. So I hope it will calculate beans. Let us go and run this. I'll enter 4,000, then 5,000, then quantity, I'll enter 34. Let's also create the beans. Let's open. This one has not appended anything. Let's go back and we go to somewhere here. It is beans array. Did I call it beans array? Yes, it is the beans array. Where is it? It is the beans array dot push. I have to put these records, and then this is okay. This line is okay, and then okay, there's a problem here. We didn't remove this, so just replace this so that we write the data to this array. So command the browser, try again. We had tried 5,000, then 6,000, then 34, then compute. We have the CSV here, so it has the data correctly. Let's go to the last one. The last one, we shall also copy these lines like this. Shall come and paste it down here. So this one we shall be careful so that we don't leave behind anything. This one is millet. So I'll copy this array. I will use it where also. This one no. This one no. I will use it at this point. Then this one will be, I'll give this a name as millet. So let's go back to our website. Shall add some values here like this. Quantity we shall add 2. The CSV is downloaded, and we have the data here just like this. So by so doing, you'll be able to create a website like this. Remember, I left the task of accomplishing the total profit by adding the profit from here, the profit you get here, the profit you get here. So remember, these areas we made them read only, so nobody can alter or enter in text anyhow. So this brings us to the end of this section. However, this section has a lot of work. We only made a skeleton like this. We didn't even put a background color to the website. Only put a logo, put the top heading, and develop the other area. So go ahead to create more advanced options, perhaps add a database, and then upload it on the web, putting in priority security of the data which will be collected. So thank you for being in with me for this one. So we shall pause here, and then we come back again for another section of Microsoft Excel VBA. We shall do the same project. Alright, now we have this task here. Now, how would we solve this task using AI? We would go and copy this. Then we go and prompt AI to write for us a prompt. Let me open my browser. Now we shall use DeepSeek. Come and find DeepSeek. You can use any AI model of your choice. Come and open DeepSeek. So within here we shall now paste the task. So however, we shall add here it was create a program that calculates traders profit. So we shall say, we shall put in bracket and we say create this program. Remember, giving an extra prompt to AI is better. Create this program such that it can be dynamic to handle other products. So we shall also say use Python. So remember, we have a variety. You can now prompt it to use Visual Basic, you can prompt it to use C++, HTML, JavaScript. So my case, I'll just say it, tell it to use Python. Let us see what it will deliver. So you can write better prompts so that it does for you something better than this. So it will start creating this, and you realize maybe what we did was not very standard, but we may be on track. Look at this. So something like this, dynamic implementation. So you can compare with yours you have developed. So after testing your knowledge, you can now come and ask AI to do for you something like this. So you can copy the code or download, then you can run it and see how the project developed by AI looks. Alright, go ahead, test both AI and also your own. Remember, your own thinking helps you to solve more problems and also understand the syntax, because after it has done all this, at least you must have knowledge of how it made some of these calculations. That's why AI is here, but it is here to help us be effective. Have your own ideas, understand almost. You may not understand everything, but understand something small, because you may need to go ahead and look at a few more details, even so the very AI can do debugging for you and other tasks. So go ahead, explore AI, explore your own coding, and let us meet in the next lectures. Alright, now after developing the whole project, the process is not done. There's a lot of learning through. Now there are some of the recommendations I've outlined here. Now these recommendations, while in the field, you'll get more recommendations. I'm still a manual Gdudu and I'm instructor in this area still. So some of the recommendations after building the project, remember we have built the graphical user interface, we have built a website which can compute calculations, we have built something in Excel. So there's something we should look out for: input validation and sanitization. This is one of the further recommendations. So make sure all user inputs are validated and sanitized to prevent injection or invalid data processing. So for example, validate numerical inputs to ensure they are within expected ranges. Then file limit access, avoid writing CSV files like the way we did. So to unrestricted locations, use a dedicated directory with restricted permissions. So an example, store CSV files to secure subdirectories. So also error handling, ensure all exemptions are properly caught. So other recommendations include also avoid hard coding sensitive data. So if your application requires sensitive data such as API keys, database credentials, avoid hard coding them. Then restrict external libraries. Ensure you only use trusted libraries also. Ensure file permissions are secure. Set appropriate file permissions for CSV files such that there is no unauthorized access. Then also use virtual environments. So run your Python in a Python virtual environment to isolate dependencies and reduce risk of dependency-related vulnerabilities. So update dependencies. There are some dependencies which have been, duplicated, something like that, whereby the developers are no longer maintaining them. So always update and download new ones. So secure the graphical user interface by limiting the functionality of graphical user interface to only what is necessary. An example, disable drag and drop features or clipboard access if not needed. So in case there is no need for copying and pasting, so you can disable the clipboard. So logging and monitoring, implement logging to monitor user actions and detect suspicious behavior. So use Python's logging module to log events. So if you're in a website, also check out what can best support you in that. So prevent code injection, that is point 11. Avoid using the evil function. That one is used mostly if you're doing calculations. So in graphical user interface applications. So avoid using them as they can execute arbitrary code and pose a security risk. The beautiful thing is there are other alternatives to them. Secure dependencies. Use tools like pip audit to check for known vulnerabilities in your dependencies. So by implementing these measures, you can significantly improve the security of your application and reduce the risk of malicious activities. So in case you're excited to learn with me again, go ahead, finish up here and let us meet again.